Cravings are fun. Welcome to Seaview Circle, our podcast in which we review and recap our favorite television shows and movies from the past, present, and possibly the future. And we do this all in service to determining how highbrow or lowbrow our viewing taste is.
Yes, and along the way we also talk about vintage fashions and styles and maybe some filming locations that we've spotted along the way as longtime residents of Southern California. Now, we are in the midst of covering Knots Landing Season 2. This is the longest running primetime serial of its era. It ran from 1979 all the way up to 1993, 344 episodes, and they are all available to stream right now on Plex.tv. There may be some other streaming services.
I think Prime Video too.
All the time, and some you can buy them, and others it's free, but you gotta go watch the commercials, that kind of stuff. So our coverage is meant to be for those people, longtime fans who've seen the show several times, or new fans of the show that are just watching it for the first time, right?
Yeah. And we typically take a deep dive into a lot of the different nuances of the characters in the show.
Yeah.
Which brings us to today's episode.
Yes.
Because we are focusing today on Ginger and Kenny.
Yes. So we want to find out, will there be justice for Ginger, right? If you remember, when we covered the season 1 episodes, we kept thinking, gosh, they are really not using this character at all. Like, Kenny definitely had a little bit more to do with stuff. And then we were like, where is Ginger? She's like in the first episode. We don't see her for many episodes after that. She did have a good episode in season 1. So let's see. Are they going to give more to her this season? We're going to find out.
We sure hope so.
What do you think? Drop a number 2 in the comments below if you think that Ginger's storyline is going to improve in season 2. And while we're on the topic, actually, we should say some reminders. We always appreciate if you can hit that little like button right there.
Yeah, do it now.
Do it right now. We're waiting. We'll wait.
No, it really helps us because it does help bring us to more viewers. It's just the algorithm of the way that these platforms work. So
we are also trying to get to 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
We're only about halfway there. So we need a lot of subscribers on that YouTube. If you can hit that button and also that little notification bell, that will let you know when new episodes of our podcast drop. We still have several more to go of this season. Also, you can comment. Again, like I said, comment on the episode. Let us know what you think. What's your favorite moment from this season for Kenny and Ginger? What favorite style? What favorite hairdo? Because there's some good ones.
Oh, there's some good hairstyles in this one. I made a lot of notations here, which we'll talk about.
You can also follow us on Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Of course, the podcast is also available on Spotify, and you can rate the show there. And if you have any friends, any like-minded friends, Knots Landing fans who might appreciate some content about their favorite show, please let them know about us. We'd appreciate it. All right, so let's get into the chat. Now, I don't know if you watched the last episode, which was all about Abby. Basically track the characters throughout the season, and then we spend a little bit more time on the episodes in which the characters are kind of more like the central figure. Now, like we said before, Justice for Ginger, these are the 2 main cast members that do not get as much screen time, or at least like full storylines devoted to them.
Right. They don't get every episode a big chunk.
Yeah. I think they're the only main cast members who do not appear in all 18 episodes. So keep that in mind. We are going to be focusing on episode 5, which is Kristin. That is very centrally focused on those 2 characters of Ginger and Kenny. And then, of course, Moments of Truth.
Moments of Truth.
We will be covering that one
The infamous Moments of Truth.
All right, but in the first episode, which is Hitchhike Part 1, everybody's in the cast is in that episode. They're all represented in this one scene where newcomer Abby is introduced to the neighbors, right? So there's something going on with Sid, and we'll get to that in the Sid episode, but they're all there, and I think what's happened is, I think Ginger's already at this little get-together at the Fairgates, but then Kenny arrives on the off chance that maybe she is there because he would like to talk to his wife, who he is currently separated from.
Right, and that's how the last season had ended. We saw them separate.
Right, because if you remember, Kenny had started up this relationship with Sylvie.
And we're going to see a lot of Sylvie.
We're going to see some Sylvie. Now, Sylvie is his sort of music protege that he cut a record with. And then I think it might even be like the second to last episode, it is revealed that they're having an affair. And, you know, Kenny, there was some character assassination in that finale because up until that point, he was a pretty likable guy for the most part. But then as soon as he is having this affair with Sylvie, he's like suddenly lost all of his marbles. He's like showing pictures of Sylvie, asking Ginger's opinion on them. It's just crazy. And so Ginger suspects it. This is back in season 1. And then she even asks him, and he denies the affair.
Right. Yeah.
But then what happens is that she had gotten some advice from Laura about how to like keep Kenny interested in her, even though he's got this career. And she said, oh, why don't you go to the studio? And so she does. And that's when she walked in on Sylvie and Kenny fooling around when they were supposed to be working. Yes. So the reason why Ginger is so upset with Kenny is not just because he lied about the affair, but then when he tries to apologize for it later, he meets up with her at the zoo where she's an elementary school teacher, kindergarten teacher, and he tries to use them as like a shield.
Yeah, the children are used as a shield.
For his apology. It's like, and she did not appreciate that.
Yeah, it was not cool. He's made some bad moves.
Yes.
And I'll say that's part of the thing I keep seeing with his character in general is he just doesn't quite seem to learn. He's a little dim.
He's a little dim.
Cute, but dim is the word.
He's very charming.
Yeah, he's written
We
in
know
such
some
a way.
people like this.
We
right?
sure do. We know a few
who
people.
like maybe make mistakes often and they're cute and they get away with it, and that's probably why they don't learn.
Yeah, they don't learn because they just, I don't know, they repeat
So
it.
I will say, though, that Ginger is giving him a hard time here, especially in this first episode. She's like, no, I don't want to talk. Now, what also happens in this moment is that, of course, Abby comes up and she's already been talking to Ginger. And so she asks, so who's this? And then Ginger says, oh, he's my... She doesn't want to answer, right? So Kenny has to say, husband. I'm your husband. And then Abby says, oh, cute. Very cute.
Yeah, you can see she's like, oh.
But there's not really much going on here in this moment because it's just establishing where we are in this relationship. And I think Ginger gives out the exposition here that they are still separated. And she even says something like, oh, why don't you go back home to Sylvie? So we know that they're still shacking up together as well.
Totally.
Now, as we just said, they ain't in episode 2, right? They are already given a little bit of a pause in season 2. We pick back up with the storyline in episode 3, and we have Ginger coming home from this date where she's underwhelmed.
Yeah, you could tell it was like a bad date. We see the guy, right?
Yeah.
Like briefly.
Right. And he tries to intimate like that he'll come inside with her if she likes.
She's like,
she's like, no, I'm tired, whatever. So she goes inside, and I think immediately, she's saved by the phone call, actually.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be Kenny. So she's like, ugh. And Kenny's at some bar or whatever. And he's like, he comes up with some excuse that he needs to borrow a mic for some recording and it's left at the house, right? Because he's not living there. Yeah.
You mean you don't have another microphone at the studio?
Yeah, exactly. So he's trying to say like he wants to come over and pick it up now. And Ginger says, no, let's do it in the morning. I'm really tired. I want to go to bed. And he says, oh, well, I'll tuck you in.
But she's not having it.
It's a no.
Yeah.
It's a no.
I think that's good about her character. You can see before she would let things go, but now she's not having it.
She's fed up. She's fed up. But he's there bright and early the next morning to pick up that mic, give any excuse for him to come to the cul-de-sac. And this is that moment where they're kind of fighting about talking or hashing through all this. And then there is Abby again. At this point, she's already moving from the Fairgates into the house that she has rented, conveniently right next door to Kenny and Ginger. And this is a great moment because she has this box of toys, her children's toys, and she sees him coming and she purposely drops the box.
Right.
And then she's like, it reminded me of the movie 9 to 5 when Franklin Hart, he does that thing where he pushes the pencil case over on the desk so that he can see Dora Lee pick them up. But then in the reverse, which is the dream sequence, Dora Lee does the same thing to him.
She does the same thing to him. He's so easily
he's
manipulated.
a moth to the flame.
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly. So,
So he bends down to pick up that box and Ginger could see right through all this. And this is, of course, that moment again where she's trying to inaugurate the pool. So she's inviting Richard over as well. And then like Laura comes out and she's like, oh yeah, and you too. And then she has to turn to Ginger and say, oh, and make sure you bring this one too. Now, we never actually see that scene of the inauguration of Pool. I guess it never happened. I guess the wives said, no,
Yeah, the
that's not
wives
happening.
probably called up and said, that's not going to be happening.
So I guess it's like any excuse again to come over. He has brought the mic back after recording. You know, she must have the mic at the house,
Yeah,
right?
well, you got to keep that mic at the house.
So
you
he's
never know
waiting-
when you might need a mic at the house, right?
Right?
Like here.
Yeah, exactly. So he's waiting inside and she's coming with her groceries. He sees that she's shopped for TV dinners, and that is a perfect opportunity for him to invite Ginger out to dinner. So where does he suggest they go, Doug?
Mama Stallone's.
Yes,
Which
this-
is the place where he proposed to her originally.
Right. Place of their first date, I think they said, and then also where he proposed to her. And she's like, because she says no right away. And then when he suggests this place, then she's like,
Yeah, you could tell. The gears are turning. She's like, oh, well, that's a nice place. That was, we had a good time.
So
there.
he wants to go for some linguine and clam sauce and some of that deep dish pizza. And when they flip to that scene, she is biting into that. That looks so good. I was into it. You know, I like some deep dish
Yeah,
pizza.
he likes a deep dish. He's Chicago, you know.
Right.
I'm more of a thin crust New York.
Right.
But I appreciate deep
So
dish.
she's, of course, the cheese is dribbling down her cheek, and he has to like pat her cheek or whatever. It's this little tender moment. And then they start talking about, I guess, this date that they had previously where they had picked up some Mama Stallone's for a little picnic, and they went bike riding, and then they were almost caught by a farmer while they were making love in the haystack.
In the haystack. I mean, that's so cliche.
It's a
but
little cliche.
I like it.
I kind of like it too. I kind of like it. It feels like of the moment, of the late 70s, early 80s. Like you could just imagine the yacht rock
I
playing.
see it in the soft focus, the
Yes.
running in the fields
Right.
kind of thing.
Yes. They like have the camera like at the level of the flowers. You can see
Yeah.
the flowers going like this and they're bike riding by. All right, so the date is so great that they do return home, and this is where they have the music changes too. Speaking of yacht rock, that Kenny and Ginger theme, and we hear it all the
Over
time.
a few
And we heard it
times,
in
yeah.
season 1 as well.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like the Carpenters, like arrangements in the Carpenters Christmas album, which would have been right around that same time. It's the same kind of like soft jazz vibe, and it's very sweet. It's got the little I don't know what that sound of that noise is. That's like it's like a vibraphone.
It's probably a synclavier. We keep talking about that all the time, the Gerald Immel music, but that's probably what it is.
So they kiss at the door, and Ginger lets down her guard and lets him in, and they make love.
They make love. Hey, it
Yes.
happens.
Now, the next morning, of course, Kenny just thinks, everything's just back to normal. He's going to go pick up his bags, and he's just going to move right in, right? He's ready to make breakfast at the old homestead,
Yep.
is what he says. But Ginger is like, no, wait, what about Sylvie? What about this girl you're shacking up with, right? He kind of goes like this. He goes, what does she have to do with any of this? And he kind of like displays his chest. It was really funny.
I was like, at that point, you're like, come on, dude. You can't be that dumb.
Right. Ginger tells him nothing has changed until they work through their problems. And so I think Kenny says something like, well, what was last night all about? And Ginger does answer appropriately. She literally says, I don't know.
Hey, listen.
She's confused.
Anybody who's ever been in a relationship that kind of broken up, let's talk facts. How many times did you maybe go back for a little bit more before, even though it ended?
So embarrassing. I can't answer this.
I can answer.
Seriously. I mean, when I was in a relationship before, I would say we probably broke up and got back together 8 times.
Oh, see, I never had it that many times. But I did do a couple times when I had a breakup.
Hookup, yeah.
But
yeah.
not because it was just
I
familiar.
once broke up with somebody. This was when I was living in New York, and we still had to live together for like another year. And I think we did hook up a couple times during that year. Only a couple. It just happens. The feelings are still there. It's just kind of messy and blah, 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 blah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't fault Ginger for going down that
I
road
don't
at all.
either.
It's like, it's
Especially
comfort,
since
whatever.
that her marriage was a decent part of her life for a certain amount of time.
Right.
And she has those memories from Mama Stallone's.
And let's face it, they are not divorced yet.
Right.
At this point.
Right.
Right. So, hey, whatever.
Now, I wonder if anything's going to test this, though. I wonder if...
I think there is going to be some tests.
Because going into the next episode, this is our first of our featured episodes. This is episode number 5. It is called Kristin. Now, it actually starts with another date between these two. And they're at the front door, and Kenny's like, so I guess I'm going to go back in again.
Yeah, he thinks we're going to do a round 2.
And she says, no, you can't live with Sylvie and sleep with me. I mean, that's fair, right?
Yeah.
And she says it's not going to happen every time. And Kenny tells Ginger that if she allows him to come back home, he'll break things off with Sylvie.
Right, but she draws a line in the
Ginger
sand.
says it's the other way around.
Right, and I was very proud of her.
Yes.
Because let's face it, show me the money, baby.
Yeah, he's like hedging his bets. If you do this, No. He's the one who's already in the doghouse. He's the one who's already tested the boundaries without, her knowledge. So it's got to be the other way around. He asks again, so what was that all about before? And she says, I don't know. She's confused, right? Meanwhile, across town,
there's a great party going on. Immediately, I was like, oh, here we go again. It's like Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Yes.
There's like this groovy lighting.
Yeah, there's like some weird characters.
People hanging out.
It is a swinging 1980 Hollywood party.
Yeah, it's definitely a Hollywood party. It's not a Knots Landing party.
No. And we do see a familiar face to fans of Dallas, because we see Kristin Shepherd looking gorgeous.
And that's Mary Crosby.
Mary Crosby is gorgeous. She certainly has a mug on her. She knows how to use those eyes and that mouth. She gives Abby a run for her money. And somebody even says that, I think, in the episode at some point.
Here we go kind of again now with season 2 where they're trying to bring in the Dallas viewers. So,
and let's be honest, this is the season where there was this big situation happening over in Dallas, because on November 21st, 1980, JR is shot.
And it was a big deal. I was old enough to remember. I don't know if you remember.
I was just old enough to know it was.
It was like the whole country was just like,
yeah. It was on the cover
JR?
of Time magazine, I think.
It was like, that's all people talked about. And back in those days, there were only really 3 channels.
Right. So you can imagine how Knots Landing must be getting some sort of boost off of all this attention, because this episode aired on December 18th, 1980. So that's only a little over a month since she shot JR, spoiler alert. So she is now in Hollywood trying to, I guess, escape whatever went down over there. Now, I actually don't really remember why she did this or what the fallout was.
I did a little research because, again, it's a long time for me, too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Dallas fan, you can certainly let us know some of the context in the comments.
She was angry with JR because they had an affair, okay? And then
this is JR's wife's sister, right? This is Sue Ellen's sister.
So she was angry because they were having an affair, and then he ditched her, and he tried to ruin her reputation.
Yes.
But the other thing was that she claimed that she was bearing his child because she's pregnant.
She mentions that to Val at the end of the episode. Yeah.
And so one of the things I found out through this was that when they do find out that she was the one that shot JR, he doesn't end up pressing charges because of the fact that the baby could be his.
Okay.
So it's like, so she gets away with it.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, he wasn't very nice to her.
Well, I mean, he's not.
He wasn't very nice to too many people.
To ladies, I would say.
Yeah. But that's the premise of that.
So does anybody know, if you watch Dallas, can you let us know in the comments what happened to Kristin beyond that? We'd love to hear it. Because what happens here, though, on Knots Landing is she's at this wild Hollywood party, and they're passing around some illicit materials that are white and powdery.
White powdery. And I think I know that in the 80s, there might have been a drug that was very popular.
Very popular.
They wrote songs about it.
Yes, they might have. She is offered this substance, but she declines. But unfortunately, the neighbors have called the police due to noise complaints, and they come in right at the exact moment that she is holding the
baggie.
Yes. So she is taken to the police department. Now, I have to mention something about this party. Do you notice there's like this weird white stuffed cactus?
Yes. I mean, of course, I clocked on to it, and I was thinking, is it fabric?
Yeah.
So
it's like a twill. It's like a twill cactus.
It's weird.
It's from the same collection as the weird white palm tree in Abby's house.
I was thinking about this just this morning. Do I recall
over a cup of coffee
the 80s? Kind of remember going somewhere where somebody had something weird like this. Like, I think it was just a thing that they were doing. I don't think people would do it now because, first off, that stuff's going to get really gross and dirty.
Yes.
From just the dust in the air.
Totally.
It would be gross.
Yeah.
You can't wash it.
No.
Were you going to hose it down?
It's a no. It's a no.
It's a no.
It's a no.
But I guess that's a craze that just didn't stand the test of time.
Anyway, so the next morning, it's a foggy morning in Knots Landing because we have 3 of our neighbors here. They're doing a jog, and Val is leading them, right? Because she is the resident jogger. We know this, that one of Joan Van Arc's things she kind of instilled into the character is the running. And if you listen to We're Not Done Yet, you know that Joan Van Arc is still running to this day, and that's fantastic.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes.
Because let me tell you something, I can't run anymore.
Those knees!
My knees just hurt too much. I did try to find the location. I was looking really hard. So I don't know where that was filmed.
I don't know either.
Wasn't able to
something
confirm
near
anything.
Santa Monica too, right? Because near the studios, maybe.
Yeah, I guess,
Who
but
knows?
it's just weird because it was kind of a hilly area.
Because it was foggy.
Maybe it was Palisades. If anybody knows,
Yeah.
let us
So
know.
we have them jogging, and then they stop to take a break, and then magically this gentleman kind of stops right before them. He recognizes Laura. So this gentleman's name is Karl.
Karl.
And Karl is a pediatrician who takes care of Jason.
Yeah.
And so Laura introduces Karl to Val and Ginger recognizes the son that he's running with, Mark, is one of her students. So that's kind of convenient.
Isn't that convenient?
Right. So they have this little moment and they talk about jogging. And I guess Ginger said, "Oh, this is my first time jogging." So he's like, "Oh, well, I'll see you back here again some other time or whatever."
Yeah.
And she's wearing this weird scarf thing, which was not a look. It was not a good look.
But I really like the scene because I like the fact that she's getting a little attention, and
Yes.
we're going to go down this road.
You know.
And I thought he was kind of cute. He's got a little beard going.
Uh-huh.
You know, I did look up a little bit about
This is
him.
David Haskell, actor David Haskell.
Yeah, now
we'll see a lot of him this season.
He's sadly not with us anymore. He died of like brain cancer when he was 52 years old. So, but I guess he was a Broadway actor, so he had done Godspell. So I
Okay,
kept thinking
yeah.
like, okay, early 70s, Jesus,
Sure.
look. You know,
Sure.
so I can see that.
One of our viewers, Val, suggested to us that Karl looks like a Bee Gee. I have to agree. That's a pretty fair comparison.
He's likable. He seems very nice.
He was likable, and that was a cute little moment and something we don't often see, them all jogging somewhere. And I guess when they return home from that, that is when Val goes into the kitchen and she gets the call from Kristin seeking some assistance, someone to come pick her up from the police department. So they bring her back home.
Yup.
Right now, you may have noticed our decor here is like a recording studio. We try to put in some of our equipment here because a lot of activity happens at the recording studio this season. This first scene that we see, we have Sylvie and Kenny. They're sort of arguing about the fact that Kenny has signed a new group of singers, all female singers, and she doesn't like this competition.
She does not approve.
Now, I would say this is a little bit, again, of a character redirect now on the Sylvie. Now, I'm not saying that Sylvie was like all warm and fuzzy last season, but she definitely has become a little bit more annoying and petulant here. She's wearing her Cosmic Steeple
and
shirt.
I want to talk to you about that. Iron-on transfers, okay? In the 70s,
Kinda like foil.
in the 80s, that
and the
was like a
font
big
is really
thing.
cool.
When I would go to the Northridge Mall, which is
Okay.
very close to Crystal Air Place, that's where we would hang out.
Uh-huh.
There was this place that we loved called The New Breed. They just did all the T-shirts.
Do you remember
and
what
you
it would
make
be
them
like
custom
on the wall? There
Yeah.
would be probably, 40 different designs, and they'd have like the little number in the corner. So you
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I'll take the 47."
Yeah.
And they would do it right there. They press it on the T-shirt. Remember that smell? You can just remember that smell when they put the thing down. It's like burning
I remember
plastic.
you could get like, oh, I want to get a Snoopy applique.
Uh-huh.
But I remember that whole thing where you could just get the letters. I would kill just to get that
Yes,
now. Like,
I remember.
Can I get the Carpenter's one that says
Yeah,
lead sister?
I know.
You know, or
I know.
lead brother.
Yeah,
it would be
yeah,
fun
yeah.
just to do that. I just want to just make note, too, to let you know that we're both channeling Kenny today. Two different Kenny looks. So I'm doing
Yes.
disco shirt Kenny.
And I'm doing Hawaiian Aloha shirt, Kenny, right?
Yeah.
Now, there is another style, too, if you notice. He wears it a lot this season, where he's got like the kind of beige shirt on with the maybe tan vest. It's just
yeah.
more like rock star manager look, right? So I didn't have that.
And there's a sporty look, too.
And there's a sporty look,
But I
too.
don't have that look. So,
Yeah.
this is about the best we can do under the circumstances. Unfortunately, I will not be dressing like Ginger.
That's after the podcast.
That's after the podcast, okay? But
So she's got the Cosmic Steeple shirt on, which is a great nod back to the first time that we saw Sylvie back in season 1, episode 6, Home is for Healing. That's where they had that crazy Cosmic
that was another
Steeple
great party.
Yes.
The English guys.
Yes.
Remember that? It was fun.
And Louise Valance, that was her first episode where she sang Moon Dance.
Yeah, Moon Dance.
If I remember correctly.
Yep.
And she has a really great voice. And again, she was kind of more likable back then. And now they're switching her over. She's again jealous that Kenny has signed these people on. And Kenny says something like, well, listen, I don't just invest my entire time into your career. Like, I've got to do other stuff as well. Because I guess she now has a record that's on the charts and doing pretty well.
Yeah.
This whole conversation kind of builds to a boil, though, when she brings Ginger into the conversation. Because basically she wants all the attention on her, and Kenny underlines to Sylvie that she needs to leave his wife out of it. It being their relationship, I guess. He storms off and she is left there miffed.
I wanted to ask you a little something, though. What I noticed with Sylvie's character through this whole season was she has a lot of different hairstyles going on.
She has a lot of different
she's
hairstyles.
Like curly, perm, straight,
Braids,
blonde.
Yeah, I was confused.
Yeah, it was like
confused.
Every episode she had like a different style, and I was like, oh, okay, that's her again.
Yeah, I know. It was a little
interesting.
confusing. I would agree.
I had fun watching it, though.
Yeah. I enjoy her.
Yeah.
She, to me, is a very different spice than everybody else on the show, and I like that. I like to have some variety of life. Okay, now over at Ginger's elementary school.
Right, Ocean Crest Elementary.
Is this real? Is this real?
No, well, I did.
Did they really carve a wooden sign just for this show?
No,
I
you
can't
know
imagine.
what? They did.
Wow.
Because I remember, though, those signs look very much like that at the LA schools. Sure. But it's Stoner Avenue Elementary, which is actually on Braddock in Culver City.
Okay.
So it's Culver City School. So close to the studio.
Yeah.
So they must have just flipped that sign out and copied like the vibe. But so that's the elementary school.
Well, in this particular scene, Karl's there picking up his son from school, and he gives Ginger the backstory about his separation from his wife. Oh, yeah, that was established in the other scene we forgot to say. They both happen to be separated from their spouses, right? He suggests they talk more about it that night.
Yeah, and she says, okay.
She hems and haws for a bit, and then she says, sure. Now, back on the cul-de-sac, we have a really, really great scene, okay? At this point, Kristin is now at the Ewings. She's gone upstairs to take a shower because she's at the police department all night long, right? And she comes down the stairs, and Kenny has come over to repay a debt to Gary. And this just gives Ted Shackelford just a really great comedic moment, because as soon as Kristin comes down the stairs in her robe, and there's this handsome Kenny right there. Oh, by the way, did we mention he's wearing that cute little number five shirt and like a little satin, those little satin jackets, remember?
It's a powder blue satin jacket.
Looking super cute, super handsome. She is like, ooh, I want a piece of that. And Gary can see right through her, because again, Gary does not like this woman.
No,
okay? We'll talk about
very
in the Gary Val
anti-Kristin.
Yeah. He tries to introduce Kristin to Kenny, but they are too busy doing that themselves. And so he's kind of mumbling in the background. Well, yeah, this is...
they're not listening to him. It's very funny.
This is my sister-in-law, but I don't like my sister-in-law. And she's actually the sister of my sister-in-law. So she's my sister-in-law squared. And they're just
they're just kind of like not paying attention to him at all.
And then it gives him also this great opportunity to have these like really funny facial expressions. And Ted Shackelford, he has a very charismatic face. I mean, it can do all sorts of things. It can morph wildly, and we will see so many great faces throughout this series from him, especially when he laughs. You all know what I'm talking about, okay? Now, in this moment, Kristin says, oh yeah, I'm new to LA, and I'm trying to find my way around. And Kenny says, oh, well, I could do that. I could show you around, right? And again, Gary laughs. And then she says specifically, I'm looking for a job.
Right. And of course, what do you think? She might just be
Val
able to get a
overhears
job.
That. Val says, oh, yeah, he works in the recording business. You know, maybe you can get him a job. So he's like, yeah, maybe I can.
Cocaine secretary? Oh, no.
Now, across the way, the dinner date Karl has is with Ginger actually at the Ward's house. They're on the floor eating Chinese food.
They're being so exotic by having Chinese food, 1980.
Like out of the curtain. So this conversation is more backstory about Karl's situation with his wife, and he kind of explains it to her about how she was kind of the more loose person who was not as interested in the relationship. And so Ginger sees this as the same kind of situation as she's having with Kenny, but in reverse.
Right.
They call it irreconcilable differences, right?
Yeah.
That was even a movie, I think, in the early 80s. That phrase was used a lot, all the time when there was ever any divorce. It was irreconcilable differences, showing that people still love each other, but for whatever reason, they couldn't live together, right? So I think at that point, Ginger reveals she's going to San Francisco to
see her mom,
because he's like, oh, let's talk about this more. The more we talk about this, the more fresh perspective we can give each other. They're trying to help each other out through this terrible time. Ginger can't do it because she's going to San Francisco. He says, well, I'll drive you to the airport, right?
Yeah.
So this is weird because after the dinner at the Ewings, Kenny comes out with Kristin and she's still wearing the robe, which is weird. She sat down at the Ewing dining room table in a robe while the rest of them were all dressed. It's weird. A little weird.
It's casual.
It's casual, yes. Oh, maybe her clothes were still in being laundered.
Oh,
right?
that could be.
That's
a good one.
We'll, as a writer, we'll say that.
We'll allow that.
Okay.
For the record.
But magically what happens is a soap opera device because they come out at the same time that Ginger is saying goodnight to Karl.
She gives him a kiss.
Yes. And of course, Kenny sees this and his machismo goes into overdrive. He gets in the car and he just zooms off down the poor cul-de-sac. Then Kristin sees this. She sees, oh, there's some issues with this relationship that she can use that information to her advantage later on down the line. So the next day, they are at the recording studio, and we have Kenny showing Kristin, the new temporary receptionist, the little intercom, phone system, what have you, right? And then, of course, we have Sylvie breezing in to see this. She spots this beautiful woman here, and she starts marking her scent all over that studio and all over Kenny. And Kenny says, oh, yeah, this is our new temp receptionist. And Sylvie says, oh, that'll be good for business.
Yeah, she is not having it.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. Kristin tells Sylvie that she has her album and that she thinks that Kenny is a genius. She says she's really excited for her first job in LA. Sylvie says, I'm sure it won't be your last.
Yeah.
It was cutting, but also like innuendo.
Yeah. They're together alone.
Yeah,
Sylvie
Kristin leaves. Yeah,
Kristin leaves, and then it's Sylvie and Kenny, and she's like, fire her. She's like not having it.
Yeah,
so it's like she's the diva.
Right.
And you are not, there's not going to be another woman working here that looks like that.
Yeah. Wild. All right. Now back at the elementary school, Kenny has come by with any excuse to see Ginger again. He has a little present for her. It's an unbirthday present because it's not her birthday, but he says it is. And is it perfume?
I wasn't sure. I looked at it. It kind of reminded me of those things like made by Cody,
Yes.
like a powder, ladies.
Yes.
Talc.
This is really just a ploy to get information about who Ginger was with last night.
100%.
So at that moment, she says it's Karl, I think, father of one of her students, maybe. I don't remember. But then Karl comes up at that moment to pick up his son. And then that's when Karl says, oh, Ginger, I'll pick you up later tonight.
Yeah.
So Kenny's like, wait a minute, you're going on another date with this guy? Like right away, what is going on? He says, I don't want you seeing Karl. And then Ginger says, well, what are you talking about? Like, this is, you don't have a choice in my life anymore. You don't get to say that. His wife is seeing another man.
And she should.
Right. Absolutely.
I called that ginger emancipation.
This is
right on, man.
Yeah. Back at the studio, we have Kristin playing pool, and she's wearing like these super tight jeans.
They're like Jordache.
Sergio Valente or
Sergio
Jordache.
Valente,
Oh my
maybe.
gosh, yes. So Kenny comes in, he's obviously pissed off because he had just come back from the elementary school, and Kristin can pick up on this. She says, oh, would you like me to fix you a drink? And so he's like, yeah, I'll have a bourbon, right? So this is that moment where I think Kenny kind of comes clean about what you were saying at the beginning of our podcast, which is that he just can never get it right. You know, he's like women. And she says, oh, you must be caught between your wife and your girlfriend. And she says, maybe what you need to do is just try a new direction.
Right. She is bad, but
and Kenny
gotta
says,
love her.
Kenny's like, oh gosh, I have enough problems already, right? Because she's almost trying to like lean in to kiss him, you know? So he stops. But then what happens later on is that he drops her off at home, and he sees, once again, Ginger leaving the house with this dude, Karl, who's come to pick her up. And there's a suitcase. So he's like, wait a minute. On the very second date or whatever, they're already going out of town? This is crazy.
Yeah.
So at that point, he realizes, oh, wait a minute. If she's really moving on with this guy to that level, then why not hang out with this gorgeous, beautiful woman that's sitting in my car?
Yeah. And I guess the fact is that he must have a set of keys still to the house.
Right.
So for some reason, Kenny thinks it's a good idea to go back to his old house with Kristin to be alone with her.
Right.
Which
I think they go to dinner first.
Yeah, they go to dinner first.
They go to dinner first, and then they come back. And this is cut with another scene, because basically what you should know is that, well, you already know because you've already watched the episode.
Well, maybe you haven't.
Okay. So on the way to the airport, we have Karl sort of trying to delay dropping her off the airport.
Right. And you know what? Obviously, back in like 1980, the situation with flying was a lot easier.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you had to worry
You just
about
walk up and get a flight. You just,
right.
Yeah, you don't have to
so
book
he's
in
like,
advance.
oh, well, you know, there's another plane coming.
Yeah.
There's one coming like in another hour and
He's like,
another
we just
one in another
passed
hour.
this great restaurant that has this amazing French onion soup. Ginger says, oh, I love French onion soup.
So they still go and they go and stop.
They go and stop and have dinner, and then they come out. I didn't catch that location. It's really hard to see, especially on the print that we were watching it on. I don't know if that's a real place. It probably is. I don't know. But then he says, oh, well, what about pushing it back even a little bit later? Because I hear the best tenor sax in the West Coast is playing just up the street. So
that's so sexy.
So sexy. It is so sexy. So anyway, what happens is they've missed the flight at this point.
Yeah, at that point, you know, she's missed the flight. It's getting too late, but she can get the first one in the morning.
Right. So he drops her off, and then she is unlocking the door, and she comes in, and there's music playing. Actually, it's very sexy music playing, because what's been happening inside is that Kenny and Kristin have been getting closer. In fact, he tries to ask her questions about her life in Dallas, but she's very evasive about that. She's wearing these amazing, like, lavender gray suede thigh-high boots. I loved that look. But she doesn't really get into the details why she's in Los Angeles, but she does admit that she doesn't want to be alone, and he can agree to that as well. So they do start making out. And at the time, I was wondering, do we have to update the Scutsy scorecard?
No, because I think what happens is Ginger interrupts them before they get moving into that direction. So
they're making out.
Making out is making out. But they did not have intercourse. So
it can be confirmed.
The master can confirm.
There was no copulation, because when it comes back from commercial break, Kenny has chased Kristin back over to the Ewing house, and they are fully clothed. There's no way she could get those tight jeans on that quick. So anyway, Val is very disappointed because she can read between the lines, because Ginger actually comes in too. She has Kristin's purse that she left behind on the couch in a frenzy. So Val is very disappointed that she can see, oh, here we go. Because Gary's been complaining about Kristin the whole time that she's been there. And now Gary's concerns have been validated. She is trouble.
Trouble with a capital T, baby.
And unfortunately for Kenny and Ginger, whatever connection they were starting to make has now been broken apart.
Obliterated.
Oh, Kristin.
Kristin's nothing but trouble.
We do have one more scene of this episode that focuses on Kenny and Ginger. We are back at the Oracle Studios, and they are cutting a new record or rehearsing a record. But Kenny is very upset with what's gone on. So he says to Sylvia, hey, listen, we need to have a talk at some point, but we can't do it right now. We have the studio time. We got to work on this right now. And she says, no, I don't want to talk about it. We are a team. So he's like, just go do the song. So she goes do the song, and he's wearing a shirt. This is
very similar to that one. Yeah. That's a vintage Kmart, you know that one. Yeah. Okay. I found that one for him. Vintage Kmart with a label.
Thank you. Anyway, so she starts singing this song. This is a good opportunity to show Louise Valance is singing again. She's got a great voice.
But I was like, that is not a hit song.
No, it is not a hit song. It was more like a Broadway type song.
Yeah, it wasn't pop. That's for sure.
Well, no. I mean, but there was music like that at the time.
I know, but it's just for me personally, I was not. I preferred the other track.
So what's significant here is that the lyrics are basically telling the story, Sylvie's story, of what she is dealing with right now with Kenny. And there's a great little transition from the recording studio to the mixing booth or whatever. And he's staring at this woman who he knows he has to end things with when he gets served papers that Ginger wants to file for divorce.
Ouch. That was a big episode, though, for them. That was like a real chunky one for Kenny and Ginger.
When they're closing in on your face? David Jacobs.
Jacob.
That's your episode.
Yeah, exactly.
We're moving on to the next episode. This is step one. The kind of the focus of this episode is the ERA benefit at the high school, and that is the one that Diana will be performing in with her mother, Karen. And what's happened here, I guess, is that Ginger is being a stage manager for this show as well. And so she has asked Kenny if he can provide the sound system for the ERA benefits. So she calls over to Sylvie's house to speak to Kenny to remind him of the location and the time and stuff like that. What I think is really, really funny is that he picks up the phone and then Sylvie is in the bathroom, like getting ready, and she's singing. And when she hears that it's Ginger, she starts singing louder.
Yeah, she gets amplified. She's like,
and then she sits down on the bed right next to Kenny and is like singing into the phone, basically. Right?
Yeah, she was being a real biatch.
Too
but
funny.
That's okay. It was fun.
So after that is done, Kenny is just like, what are you doing? You know, again, I've told you my wife is off limits. Basically, she's asking him, you still want to get back together with her, right? So he's not ended things with her yet. He's certainly not had this talk that he was going to. I guess he thought that since she served him divorce papers, that maybe he'll just stay with her, I guess. I don't know. We don't know yet.
We don't know yet what's going on.
Now, what happens later on is that Kenny has to call Ginger back again. She's busy putting on the fitted sheet on her bed. It's very Knots Landing realism there. And he says, oh, you know, we've booked some studio time. I can't come to bring the sound system to your amateur dramatics. I don't have time for that. And Ginger is super disappointed. She's like, oh, fine. Just forget I even asked. I should have known. I can't rely on you.
That was a dumb move on his part.
Right. It was not cool. And so he thinks better of it. And he eventually does show up with the sound system just in time to fix the feedback, right? When Ginger says, well, why are you here? He says, oh, well, when you started showing an interest in show business, I wanted to support that.
Right.
And that's some foreshadowing
Yes.
for the future, which I found.
Season 3.
Season 3 and season 4, right? Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Well, I thought what was funny is Kenny's interaction looking at all the ballerinas. They're like running around and he's just like...
ballerinas!
I was like, oh,
okay. Can I just tell you, from being around performances a lot in my life, ballet, whatever, any kind of dance, nobody is practicing in the wings of the theater. Like, that does not happen. That happens somewhere else. That's just like a visual gag to add some color to the scene. But I don't know, the repetition of the gag just felt a little obnoxious, in my opinion. Sort of like Sylvie, who naturally shows up here again, just like a bad penny. She's got her hand on her hip like this. She's really just cloying in her attempts to grab Kenny away from Ginger's amateur dramatics. So she comes up with some stupid excuse about how they have to go back to the studio again. So he pulls her back. And then at that moment, there's like this weird magician who pops out from the wings. He's got these flowers for Ginger. He looks like Wayne Newton.
Well, I thought it was very much like that Shields and Yarnell thing,
yes,
too.
Yes,
it's kind of like
very
something
much
they
that.
would do.
Very much that.
And for all of you who are not old enough to know about Shields and Yarnell,
well,
I'm sure it's on YouTube.
Yeah, you should check it out. That is a trip.
Really
They
good.
appear in an episode of Wonder Woman, which we really recommend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Moving to the next episode, Breach of Faith. This is jam-packed with almost every character. They got a lot going on here. There is some good stuff for Ginger and Kenny as well. In the very first scene, we have Val spotting Ginger at her OBGYN office, and she inquires, why is Ginger there? Ginger says that she has missed her period, so she wanted to talk to the doctor. And Val wonders, oh, Ginger, might you be pregnant? And Ginger says, I hope not.
And you know how excited Valine gets about a baby.
Yeah. She's like, it would be way too complicated for me to be pregnant right now. All right. Now, later on, we have Karl coming over to visit with Ginger. I guess they had made a date to go to the theater, but he got it mixed up. So the theater tickets were actually for the following week. So he brings her some flowers and he's like, so what do you want to do tonight? And she says, oh, well, now we can go over to the barbecue at the Averys. They're celebrating the fact that Laura just got her real estate license. But of course, because Ginger had already told Val earlier that day that she was going to the theater, that gave Karen the opportunity to invite Kenny to the barbecue.
Right. So that's what's great, is we're going to finally get to see these two characters interact.
Right. Yes, so Karl does meet Kenny, but it's a very quick interaction, really. I think you just see, like, Kenny's very sullen in this moment, you know, and Sylvie didn't come to the barbecue, right? So there's a funny moment where they're playing ping pong, Karl and Ginger, And then the rest of them are sitting down. And I think all the other neighbors are trying to like, they're doing small talk. This is trying to make him feel better, trying to distract him from the ping pong play. And so that's when Sid asks, oh, yeah, tell me about your new band.
They're from New Zealand.
Right.
They're called Kiwi Machine.
Kiwi Machine. Oh, and Michael is a big fan, right?
Yeah, he loves
And then Laura says, oh, yeah, I heard Sylvie's record's on the radio. It's all great. But he is just not having it at all. And I think Karen says, oh, wow, this is really the social event of the season, isn't it? But, this is a kind of a step forward for Karl and for Ginger because maybe not meeting the parents, but it's meeting the neighbors.
Yeah, meeting the friends. I mean, come on, that's a big step.
Yeah. Now, after the barbecue, Karl comes back over to the Ward's house, and I think he's maybe thinking that, something's going to happen here. But they're making out. There's these, like, romantic candles all over,
yes.
Right? So Ginger is kind of slow to respond to Karl's advances, and he suggests there are too many ghosts in the room for a relationship with Kenny. So he thinks the perfect solution is to go away for the weekend to Big Bear. I mean, this location is getting a lot of action from the Knots Landing cul-de-sac.
Now, and for many of you who don't live in California, in the 80s, I would go to Big Bear all the time. I mean, I have gone since then, but it was like a real destination.
What's great
Alpine
about it,
weekend.
What's great about it is in Southern California, you can literally go skiing in Big Bear and go surfing. Or maybe you go the reverse, right? You go surfing in the morning at the beach, and then you drive up to Big Bear to go skiing all in the same day.
Yeah, you could do it depending on what time of year it is.
Yeah, that's a love connection date right there.
That's total love connection.
Meanwhile, over at Sylvie's, Kenny is paying a horny Sylvie absolute dust. She wants to go to bed, and Kenny is like, absolutely not. He is so funny in this moment. I don't know if you've caught that, the James Houghton performance where he's just like, oh, God.
He's just clearly not into it anymore.
Yeah. So he says, I'm going out. But he doesn't really go out. Where he really goes is over to the Wards. And this is a little crazy. This scene is kind of strange. There's some almost violence that happens here. He kind of creeps in to his bedroom, right, at the Wards, and Ginger is sleeping. And she just kind of wakes up and sees this almost like a silhouette of this dude. She's a little frightened, right? And he is basically enraged because he assumes that she and Karl are sleeping together in his house. And so she's really upset over this double standard because remember, she caught him in the house with Kristin making out on the couch. So why is it okay for the man to do it, but it's not okay for the woman to do it? He's like, you are still my wife. He says, I will not let you go. Which is just so like...
Yeah, it was weird. It was like...
It's caveman stuff here.
Stalker caveman.
You know what I mean? Stalker caveman. Oh, Kenny, come on. So she tells him... Actually, he kind of gets physical with her, and then she slaps him. And she says, leave your keys on your way out and don't ever come back.
She should have taken those keys away earlier.
She should have taken the keys away from him earlier, and she should have taken them from him now because I feel like he uses them to come into the house later in the season.
Or
But anyway, you can see afterwards that she is just like so frazzled because she is now thinking, oh my gosh, what if I am actually pregnant with this man's child?
Yeah.
Ugh. So now we have the kind of final scene of this particular episode where she is getting ready to go to Big Bear with Karl. He is coming up the driveway in this amazing alpine sweater, right? But she's just gotten a phone call from the doctor's office confirming that she is pregnant.
I guess she won't be drinking and partying.
She won't be doing any après-ski.
No.
So Ginger tells Karl that she is pregnant, and he's actually very supportive. He says, oh yeah, I still want to go to Big Bear with you. I still want to be with you even through this. And he's like, I can be there for you. I can be your friend should you need it. But Ginger says, no, I just want to be alone. So the weekend is off.
I want to be alone.
All right, in the next episode, which is Scapegoats, there's very little Kenny and Ginger. We just have a moment at the beach where everybody's playing volleyball.
Everybody's there. The whole
Karl and Ginger are there, and Karl asks Ginger if she has told Kenny yet that she is pregnant, and she says no. She is worried about what he will say or what he won't say. And she says that line again and again whenever anybody asks. But Karl asks if she still loves him, and she can't really say. She says her head is telling her one thing and her body is telling her another. So Karl says, you can depend on me. And she says, oh, you're very sweet, Karl, which he is.
He is sweet.
Yes.
He's a good guy.
All right, we're moving into the next episode. Okay.
Fast track.
We're fast tracking this. We have now, I think this may be Sylvie's final moment here. We have Kenny actually looking through her promotional photos, and she comes in and she's like, when are you going to tell me about this? And she has the divorce papers, I guess, that she's found inside Kenny's jacket pocket.
And she is not happy.
She claims she was looking for some money. It's like, okay. Kenny's like very upset that, she's been snooping around in his stuff. And it is at that point where he basically tells her they have to end things because if there's any chance for him to get back together with Ginger, he has to do this. And of course, that's what Ginger said about 4 or 5 episodes ago.
Right. So he's finally got the memo.
But she's upset because she sees the divorce papers as a new opportunity for them, that they can actually maybe start again without that distraction of the wife. Maybe they can get a bigger and better place, but it's just not happening. And I have to say, at that point, he's calling her kiddo and she's calling him sweetheart. And there's no chemistry there, if there ever was any, but it's very clear at that point that there's none. And then what I found really interesting as well, watching this again, is that it switches right into a scene with JR and Abby that is so intense and so gripping that you really see the difference between these storylines in general on Knots Landing in season 2.
Yeah.
The stakes are just not as high with Kenny and Ginger. The writing is just not as crisp, and it's just more simple. It's just a more simple storyline that kind of plods along. It's like the writers got stuck in the mud, reminding us at each occurrence we see these two where we last left off with them in a previous episode.
Yup.
So who do you think Kenny's going to choose as his next protege?
I have a feeling I know.
Oh, okay. What about, who's that? Who's behind you over there?
Oh, that's Michelle Phillips.
What's that?
That's from 1977. That's one of her solo albums.
Okay.
Victim of Romance.
Okay. Is it any good?
I don't know how good it really is, to be quite honest. I don't think there's any tracks I would play out.
What about this one?
The cover is great.
What about this last?
That's who I think is the new.
You think that's who
protege?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So this is the new Sylvie. We can't wait to get to this, to be perfectly honest. We'll have to wait a little bit longer for that, though. You have to like and subscribe and comment below of where we're going to get there.
Do you love me? Okay. That's a great period. I love that period.
Now, later we have Karen and Ginger unpacking groceries. Again, this is just another one of those scenes where Karen finds out that she's pregnant and she asks if she's told Kenny, and I think she says the same thing again. She says she's afraid of what he'll say.
And what he won't say.
Now, I have to say, I do enjoy Karen's relationship with Ginger. We've seen this a couple times, especially in that episode from season 1 where she drove her out to go see the mother of her ex-boyfriend who was stalking her, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of like aunt vibes, So she's looking out for her, but kind of doing it nice and gently, Now, in the final scene of this episode for the 2, we have Kenny arriving at the Ward's house. This is when he comes in with the keys. So he never gave her the keys.
Never gave her the keys.
He brings in this giant panda.
Oh, yeah, that panda, I was thinking, those are like the pandas that you would have won that at the carnival.
Yeah.
At the Santa Monica Pier.
Why was that a thing? Why did people in relationships think that was like a real showing of endearment to give some big, giant bear?
I think the flowers would have been nicer.
I don't know. Anyway, so he tells Ginger the good news. He's finally broken it off with Sylvie. But Ginger is upset because she can't imagine that he would just think he could just move right back in.
He just thinks everything's going to be back to normal because he's done this. And she still says to him that she's not going to get back together with him.
Right. Well, she says, you can't just break up with Sylvie because you're jealous that I'm having a relationship with another man. And this kind of Cro-Magnon, that Kenny is, he has to admit, he's like, yes, I am jealous that you are with some other man. You're supposed to be with me. We love each other. They never really resolve anything right there. I think she ends up crying into the panda. So I guess that's what it's for.
That's what it was for.
That's where all those nights that he's out sleeping with Sylvie, she's supposed to hold the panda. You see what I'm saying?
That's probably what it's. That's the reasoning, I think.
Ginger says, I wish things could be as easy as you want them to be. Of course, she knows some additional information that he is not privy to at this time. Moving right along to the next episode, Players, episode 12, we have Ginger coming over to Val to show her some of the purchases, baby clothes, that she has just recently made. At which point, Val asks the same question that everybody else has been asking. Have you told Kenny yet? And she delivers the line again. What is it?
I'm scared of what he will say or what he won't say.
Right, exactly. Yes. But Val warns her, she better act fast, otherwise she's going to start showing.
Right.
Because if Kenny sees that baby bump, he might think that it's actually the Bee Gees bun in the oven.
Yeah.
But she says, oh gosh, you know what? All I can think about at this point is just of eating.
In fact, I thought about this. I'm so hungry right now.
Oh my gosh.
I got us a giant chocolate chip cookies.
Oh my gosh.
They're kind of like, they're actually kind of like,
actually as big as my head?
It's kind of like cookie scone, you know, it's one of those. But I just thought.
Ginger would tear into this. Ginger would tear into this right now. Okay, well, you know what I loved about this scene is that it was very natural. Her having the cravings during pregnancy and Val offering her food or whatever, it just was so natural. And I feel like on this show, you can tell that the writers really care about setting a tone for each of the characters, and they maintain that tone. It's not flimsy. Like, these characters are solid, and they carry through all throughout the seasons. And I think it really shows even in small, simple scenes like this. Anyway, later on, Ginger has taken Val's advice, because when Kenny comes over again, they're going to have like a little bit of a romantic moment here.
Well, I think he's fixing the stereo.
Oh, yeah, he's fixing the stereo. She says that she's been moving things around to make room for a baby.
A baby.
Yes. So he is surprised, a little taken aback, and then she definitely makes sure to tell him that she has not slept with anybody else other than him, which she had already kind of intimated before in other episodes. So he just kind of says, wow, you know. And I think later on, you see that they've slept together again after this. And he is really excited. He's ready to just move right back in
Once again, he thinks he's back.
And Ginger says, no, we still have not worked through our issues. We have to take things more slowly. We have to solve our problems. She says, though, she is having this baby with or without him. And I think the thing is, he wants to be part of this process. So that's kind of like what's going to happen for the rest of the season. They do end up kissing again in that moment. So there is some hope for this family at that moment.
Let's hope. I hope.
Okay, in the loudest word, we have, again, the continuation of just what we just had said, right? Kenny is at a park, and he spots an expectant couple sharing the joy of this pregnancy. And you have the man maybe like touching her stomach because the baby's kicking, and there's this moment of joy. And so he goes to the elementary school, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Isn't this exciting? And she's like, whoa, slow down. She can't trust that he's really going to be there throughout this whole process. So she's like, I've got to do it this way. You're going to have to cool it. You know, don't call us. We'll call you.
No, I thought that was cool. I thought it was very liberated of her, you know, not to just, she's going to do it on her terms.
Yeah. In fact, she's actually chosen Val to be her Lamaze coach for the rest of her pregnancy. But as we know in this episode, Val is undergoing her own medical situation, and she is not available for the Lamaze class. So Kenny comes up and says, I will stand in for her. And Ginger is super pissed off about this because she says, what are you doing, taking advantage of our friend's medical condition to like wheedle your way back into my life and the baby's life? He's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would even see it as like a manipulation. That is not what it was. He's not smart enough for that manipulation.
That's
Ginger.
true. He's not that smart.
He really does want to be there. And so he actually says something like, if you think that's what this is all about, then maybe I shouldn't be a part of your life. And maybe we shouldn't even be friends. Which I was like, okay.
Yeah,
Kenny,
right.
Like, yeah, I believe that, right? During the Lamaze class, the tables have now turned.
Yeah, she's there alone, and she sees everybody else.
The other expectant couples and seeing how they have to work together for this journey and make it happen. And so I think that she realizes that, you know, they need Kenny after all, she and the baby. And they're downstairs, the commissary, she comes in, Kenny's there with Gary, and she says, yeah, we need you. He gets up and they hug, And they walk off, and we're now on to a new path for this
We're on a new
couple,
path.
finally.
So that apparently they're doing the Lamaze class together.
Yes.
Isn't that sweet?
Things are once again happy until they're not.
So they're not happy in the next episode, which is called
This is Moments of Truth.
Of Truth. This
Now,
is the
if
one.
you remember a couple episodes ago, we actually had a letter from the sack that we're going to reference right now.
Okay.
Boop.
This comes from TNate6004 on YouTube. Never watched Dallas, but I vividly recall watching the debut of Knots Landing, sitting in our very 70s family room and smoking Viceroys. Parents were out of town and my grandma was staying with us. Being a fan of the more traditional daytime soap, Knots struck a chord because, as you mentioned, it was a show about regular people doing regular things, like giving someone a home perm in the kitchen, while the drama of their lives played out. Just started watching your podcast and I'm enjoying the level of detail you go into. Looking forward to you covering the episode Moment of Truth, which was my late boyfriend Ross's favorite episode.
We will be covering this particular episode, and it is a really fun one. So when we get to it, we'll talk about it. All right, so here we are. Here's our coverage, our official coverage of Moments of Truth. We did touch upon this in our Abby episode because Abby does play a pivotal role in what happens. And we'll, of course, talk about that when it happens. But we're going to talk about this in the Ginger and Kenny episode because it's really Ginger's baby shower is the setting for the dramatics that unfold. We have the ladies of Knots Landing at the baby shower. Meanwhile, the gents of Knots Landing, they're out at a boxing match, and then they're going to go have some pizza and
Yeah,
some
they're
beers.
doing kind of like the rooster and the hen party.
Yes,
Hen
yes, yes.
party,
Yeah.
I don't know, like the equivalent. Yeah,
What I
baby
love is
shower,
that
men's baby shower.
we find out from like the very first line, I think, Richard's getting drinks at the bar, and somehow it's revealed that he's a Leo, which I thought was very telling. Anyway, the main focus of this particular scene is that we do have Kenny saying to the gentleman that he feels like a guest in his own home, and that Ginger is just not ready to let him back into her heart. Now, back at the baby shower, this is at the Ewing house, by the way. Val is hosting. They're having dinner. We already talked about this little interaction between Karen and Abby at the dinner table because, Abby was talking about pregnancy during sex with Ginger, and this was all in front of Diana. There's that moment. Then they start to open up presents. And this is where things just go completely off the chain here, kids, because a group of masked bandits enter the house and they want to steal the lady's jewelry. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I don't know. I guess my initial reaction to all of this was like, why did you pick this house?
Right. And why would you pick a house that appears to have a bunch of people inside of it having a party?
Right.
Wouldn't you pick a house that is completely empty?
I'd look for a house with no lights on.
Now, as we will learn, there's a group. I don't know how many are there. I want to say there's probably 4. I don't think there's more than 4.
I think 4 people.
Yeah. 2 of them we kind of get to know. The main leader is named Rose. And then the other one is named Cal. And I will say that Cal definitely seemed like maybe he was under the influence of a substance, or maybe he was like jonesing for a substance. So I'm trying to think of what the motive is here for this to happen like quick. You know what I mean? Because there is kind of like a ramping up of action in this based off of the events of what happened, because Diana was able to sneak away during all this, and she actually crawls out through the kitchen window, and then I don't know how she is able to do it. How does she get in contact with the police? I don't even remember.
She must go over somebody's house and
Yeah.
phones the police.
Yeah, so the police come to the cul-de-sac, and right away when they see the cop cars outside, then they're like, oh, we got to do something. So that's when they decide to hold them all hostage. So the cops have then now called over to the gentleman, and the gentleman arrive. The gentlemen come in, I think, and they see all the melee going on the cul-de-sac, and they see Diana, and there's this moment. So now we have to figure out how to get these ladies out of the house and apprehend these people, knowing that they have guns, right? They have like semi-automatic guns. I don't know.
Yeah. And Ginger obviously is the one who is pregnant. So, I mean, it's even higher stakes because there's a future child as well.
Yes, and they actually take her out of the house and kind of show her off and basically say, get us a van. Basically what they want is safe passage out of this so they can leave with whatever items they were able to steal. They were looking for jewelry, and I think they wanted everybody's wedding rings as well.
Karen's actually holding out on them. She's hiding her wedding ring in her mouth.
Oh, right.
But when one of the bandits figures that out, he is so pissed off and he throws her to the ground.
Right. Yeah. There's actually a lot of confrontation between Karen and this character, Rose. Karen is really trying to reason with her. Like, do you really want to be doing this? Do you know what you're doing? She is an expectant mother. Do you really want this on your conscience? The stress of all this could make Ginger lose her baby. But Rose is a hard-ass person.
She is not. She don't care.
And Cal doesn't care either. Now, Rose also has conversations with Cal because meanwhile all this is going on, Abby is trying to work her magic to sort of seduce this guy to sort of get a leg up, no pun intended, on the situation. This is when that whole thing happens with Laura and the slap. We talked about that in the last episode. You can reference that. We will put a little link in the corner of this video that shows how to go see that if you would like. But there are these moments here where you see the drama is increasing and everybody is super scared, especially when Ginger starts to not feel well. Right? Something's wrong. So there's this like added pressure. So we kind of go back and forth between what's going on inside the house and what is going on outside the house with all the gentlemen. So the gentlemen are all holed up at the Averys. It's like base camp for whatever they're going to do. It's right next door, right? So it's across the street. Across the street. So they can kind of see what's going on from afar. And there's a moment where like there's press on the cul-de-sac and Gary is really upset that the press is there profiting off of their suffering. And he actually doesn't like beat up the guy in the living room of the Averys, and everybody has to like get him off. He's a bruh. Gary's like, again, Cro-Magnon a little bit in that moment, but he's worried for his wife, obviously, in his house, and they're all worried. In fact, there's even a little sweet moment that is very uncharacteristic of Richard, if you remember, where he goes upstairs and he actually takes out Laura's nightgown and he like places it on her pillow like very gently. It's very weird. You don't see that ever. Like,
yeah,
Richard
you don't see
alone.
him doing that.
Very interesting. Back downstairs, someone suggests, why don't we just use tear gas or whatever? They say they can't use tear gas because Ginger is pregnant and that will not be good for the baby. And the volunteer husband brigade is concerned because they feel the police aren't doing anything proactive. They're just like acting as roadblocks, figuratively and literally, I guess. They're not moving fast enough.
Well, maybe the husbands are just bummed out that they can't barge into the house themselves to recreate that beach brawl that we saw in Land of the Free.
Yes, totally. Of course, Richard would be the one taking on Rose.
No way. Rose would totally cream Richard. Like, she's so brawny.
Anyway, we go back across the street to the Ewings and tensions are escalating because Cal says, oh my God, we need this van within 15 minutes or we're going to start making the hostages pay. And that's kind of like a focus of this, right? Like,
yeah.
And then what Rose says.
Rose and Karen have a conversation. Karen's pleading with her, please, I have a husband and I have children and all this kind of stuff. And then Rose comes back with this.
It's like a mantra.
Yeah, a mantra of like, this is war. And
she says,
this is war of the
there's
have-nots.
a war brewing between the haves and the have-nots.
Right. So she's pissed off that.
It's very like 80s mentality, right?
Yeah, and you could tell she's a little rough around the edges. Mm-hmm. So it's like their view is they picked this somewhat posh neighborhood to come and.
So maybe it's not even so much about the jewelry. It's just about making them pay.
Reminds me of that mother. It's the same kind of
story. The mother from the first episode of the season.
Yeah.
She says a similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
I actually do think that was an element that they were trying to bring to this series. I think they mentioned that too about the last season as well with the Land of the Free, which is very much parallel to this episode, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's this like sweeps episode.
That's what I was going to say. I felt like this is the sweeps episode for season 2. Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, they're trying to show off every character in action, doing something. Stakes are over the top.
I'm sure if you went somewhere and could find the commercials that they used to show for like next week on Knots Landing, this one would have been like all over the place. It would have been this big action-packed episode.
Right, right, totally. So we do have everything sort of heading towards a climax because we have the SWAT team kind of arriving on the cul-de-sac. Meanwhile, Abby is doing this plan. She has this ploy to get Cal into the kitchen.
Yeah, she offers him, I think, a sandwich and to make him sandwich and a drink.
Yeah, and
so
Karen thinks this is actually very brave of her, and she's actually worried for Abby in this moment, which is a very sweet moment between those two. And of course, Laura didn't really know what her agenda was at first when she saw him flirting, but after they have that showdown in the kitchen, she knows that Abby was doing this just because she couldn't do nothing, which is what she sort of is inferring that Laura is doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Abby seduces this guy. She actually makes out with the guy because obviously he's attracted to her. And then this gives her an opportunity, like in this tussle, to grab the fire extinguisher. And she actually uses it on him at the same time that the SWAT team is kind of coming in through the upstairs windows. Something we failed to mention in the last episode, when I watched it again, the scene, is that Abby actually picks up the gun. The rifle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, this is like a badass moment here. She kind of pushes Karl into the living room. And at the same time, because of the SWAT team, there's this big distraction. And then there's this tussle with all the ladies.
Doesn't Karen get kicked or something, right?
Karen gets
I saw
pushed
that.
against the wall.
Yeah.
And Laura and Ginger, everybody's kind of in this kind of frantic moment. But it is at that moment that the SWAT team is able to come in, subdue the threat. And it really was Abby who kind of
saves the day,
believe it or not. They then cut over to the Avery's house and they get the news that this has all happened, and it cuts to a scene outside of them running outside of the house. It's early morning. So this has happened all night. Now the sun is coming up and we have this denouement of all the couples kind of getting together.
And doesn't an ambulance comes?
The ambulance comes for Ginger. And Kenny's been so frantic through this whole thing. There's actually a really sweet moment where it's Kenny and Sid on the stairs. And Kenny's like suggesting that, gosh, I really want to be Ginger's savior. And I feel so helpless that we can't be a part of this in a more direct manner. But of course, the police don't want anybody to get hurt. So he's happy to take her to the hospital and be with his wife that he's hoping to rebuild this relationship with. So that's where it is really all about Kenny and Ginger in the end. But it is also kind of an Abby moment as well, because it's showing that she is not all bad.
Right. She gets her redemption from being naughty all season in this episode.
They're hauling the crooks out of the Ewing house. And as they're pushing Rose into the car, she turns back around and she says, "Have a nice day." I mean, she just has no apologies about this situation whatsoever. By the way, Rose, kind of a standout player in that episode, was played by Rita Taggart, and she appeared on some episodes, Night Court. She was in an episode of Columbo.
Oh, okay.
Cagney and Lacey.
Oh, Cagney and Lacey.
She's cool. I liked her. She was a real broad.
She sure was.
I will say this episode was, when we get to the Browmeter, you're going to see, where we're at with that. But I will say that I missed Diana. I was hoping to see more of Diana.
Yeah, we could have had more of her
episode. I think
that.
That was a missed opportunity.
I think when Sid met up with Diana, he told her to stay over at the Beckers, the family we only hear about but never see.
Okay, but why can't she be? I mean, obviously, she was the first person who called the cops, but it would have been nice maybe at the end to have some sort of little tag on her character being part of that, her and her aunt kind of saving the day there.
Well, maybe it's in the outtakes that we'll never see.
Actually, I do have another letter from the SAC, actually.
Oh, you do?
I do. I would like you to read it if you don't mind.
I will read it.
This is actually a diary entry that was able to be uncovered, written by Valine shortly after the events of this incident.
I reckon there is no paradise in this world. Truly, all of us are prisoners of our own deepest fears. A group of armed robbers swarming through my own house brought this hard fact home to me. Imagine us, a bunch of ladies coming together for something as simple as a baby shower. It's right what they say about pregnant women. Ginger darn near beamed her head off. She never looked prettier. Then suddenly, we were at the mercy of these men, these strangers. We couldn't stop them, and all I could think of was that it was happening to me again, just like the time J.R.'s thugs took my Lucy away. I just fooled myself into believing I left all that kind of danger back in Dallas. Nothing like it could ever happen in Knots Landing. And I slept better at night by telling myself that I really believed it. I am right off the farm.
You said it, Val.
Thank goodness Abby kept her head. She saved all of our lives. I know sometimes I can't understand her. I maybe even don't like her. But deep inside, there are times I wish I was like her. She's not afraid of anything.
Wow. Now, truth be told, that was actually not a letter from the SAC. That was actually a diary entry from Val from the book series Secrets of Knots Landing, which I guess came out sometime in the mid-'80s.
So if you would like to maybe
send us a letter from the SAC,
you can do so at Seeview Circle, SEE View Circle, all one word, at gmail.com. Or, of course, you can message us on YouTube and on Instagram and even on TikTok.
Yes. So thank you for the love over there on the TikTok with the Not Sledding coverage. We appreciate it. We got a lot of new followers. We hope you enjoy the content. Okay, moving into the next episode, we have a storyline that is kinda about Ginger and Kenny, but not really at all.
Loosely about them.
Yeah, the funny thing is, the very first scene we have Olivia, and she's outside of the Ward's house playing with her friend Amy. And right away I was like, this is Jill. this is Jill, the Little House Ghost. Do you remember Jill, the Little House Ghost?
Yeah, I remember that.
She was in season 1, one of the episodes, and we're like, who is this girl all of a sudden like walking? It's like clearly nepotism here. I don't know who she's related to, but she's related to somebody. Here she shows up again playing Amy. What I thought was interesting was that she played Jill in an episode right after Jill, Ginger's younger sister, had appeared. And now we have Jill, but it's Amy, and she's in an episode with Ginger's other sister.
She could be
Cindy.
Maybe she has a twin.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
sisters.
Jill and Amy.
Jill and Amy twins. They live on the cul-de-sac in the other house.
Yes, the Beckers. The Beckers. They reference it in the last episode.
Be
the Beckers. We've never seen them, but they okay. Anyway, so we have Ginger coming home, and she hears music in her living room. She goes, "Oh, it must be my sister Cindy has come for her visit." Now, of course, we go inside, and there is Eric, who, if you remember from season 1, Eric had a crush on Ginger, and when that didn't work out, Ginger tried to hook Eric up with Jill. And then that didn't really work out because Jill was too fast for Eric. But now we see that Eric's a little bit more... He looked
very stonery,
adult, right?
What I call it, the Hesher look.
Hesher.
That's a Hesher look.
So he gets into a little bit of trouble with Ginger's other sister, Cindy. They go to a party, and at some point, there are some, again, illicit materials
being
that are distributed, passed over, and he is the stash. He's the stash. He puts them in his jacket, and then it is revealed that they are joints. Okay?
Marijuana cigarettes.
Now, the reason why Kenny and Ginger get involved is because there's a party where some of these marijuana cigarettes are laced with angel dust.
Oh my God. I know back in that time period, that was the scary thing you would always hear about was people were going to lace something with angel dust. And I remember hearing these stories about people, jumping off of the roof. Yes. There was a person who jumped into the swimming pool and drowned, but it's like a big deal.
So this is a big deal. When they find out this is the case, that Cindy's not feeling well, there is a call made to the Fairgates, and news travels fast. They get Kenny and Ginger along the way, and they all go to the party. Ginger is wearing that cool, shiny purple ski jacket. Oh, yeah. I love that. And she's got her hair in these really cool braids. Anyway, they go to the party. They find out that Eric has taken Cindy to the beach. She's freaking out. And they run just in time to find him saving her life because she was drowning in the water.
Yeah, it's like resuscitating her, or Heimlich maneuver. I don't know, something like that.
This is serious, right? So we go to the hospital, and we have, of course, Ginger worried for her sister. And we find out from the doctor, who's very handsome, by the way, we find out that she's in a coma.
Yeah, she's in a coma.
Oh, my gosh.
So they got to see if she's going to wake up or not.
Yeah, so Eric's really freaked out. And, of course, Ginger's really freaked out. She says she's going to stay at the hospital until we figure out how she's doing, right? Now, at the same time, she has placed a call to her mother, who was referenced earlier in the season, living up in San Francisco. And so she comes down to see what's all going on.
She's a real piece of work, that one.
She is a piece of work.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I was like, okay.
She is played by Cynthia Harris. She's a very direct approach to her. Now, what's interesting about her is that she later worked on LA Law, which was Knots Landing's Thursday night competition. Okay. And she also appeared in 72 episodes of the show Mad About You, which starred another Knots Landing alum featured in this season, Helen Hunt.
Oh, okay.
She played Helen Hunt's mother-in-law on that show.
I never saw that show.
I do remember her. She's very...
Was that in the 90s?
80s, 90s.
Oh, I don't know.
So anyway, she is there, and they're really the only reason why we're talking about it, because it's really more about Eric, this whole storyline, but she does give some backstory about how her husband had died a long time ago, and so she had to raise these 3 girls. The husband had died when Ginger was still in school, and then I guess Ginger went off and got married to Kenny, and there's a dismissive tone in that moment.
Yeah, she was not happy. She didn't like Kenny.
But what I thought was interesting is that Mrs. Killman says that Cindy was always the smart one, and Jill was the pretty one. And I was like, what? Ginger is the pretty one.
Yeah, Ginger
Hello?
is the pretty one.
And that's what's weird is that she actually has more similarities, I think, to Ginger than any of those two other girls, but whatever. We switch back over to the hospital, and there's a moment where Cindy does wake up from the coma after 36 hours. She says, I'm thirsty.
She had a nice sleep. You know what? How much I would pay?
Can I have a 36-hour
Can I have a
coma?
36-hour
I would
sleep?
do anything for a 36-hour coma right now.
I think it's called propofol, and we can't get it.
Yes. Oh, gosh. So, okay, the final scene of the episode. Again, this is really more about Eric, but we'll just talk about it. Kenny comes over to kind of give an update of what's going on, and he reveals that Cindy has admitted that she's the one who arranged the drugs or the PC. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, it takes all the blame off of Eric in front of his father, Sid, who is the one who is a real hard ass all about this.
And we're going to talk about that more later.
We'll talk about more of that later. Yeah. But what Kenny says is that Mrs. Killman was very strict and very rigid, and that's why the sisters always came down to Knots Landing to hang out with Ginger, because it was more laid back and freewheeling.
And you could see
that.
The strictness of her.
Karen says something like, there has to be a balance. And Diana says, well, there is, Mom. It's us.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
Very sweet. Very sweet. So that's that episode. And again, tangentially about Ginger, but not really.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we come to the end of the Ginger and Kenny storyline for season 2. This is in episode 17. Now, if you remember, 17 and 18 originally aired all together in one. So they would have appeared in the finale night, just not in the second half of it. So what we have here is just like a little denouement for these people. We have Kenny really excited about the pregnancy and really working overtime to like read all the prenatal books.
Yeah, he's getting all the prenatal books together.
Meanwhile, she's already done this like without him for a while, right? So she's more confident in what's going on. She has these cravings, right? So she's eating what, chocolate or something?
Yeah, and he tried to give her like more.
That's bad for you.
Yeah, you better get like some natural foods, and all of a sudden he's becoming like the hyper health nut, know, with regards to all the baby things.
Right. He says he's excited for the future of their family. Ginger does throw him a bone. She says that she does love him, which is something we kind of maybe have waiting for all season long, or at least for the second half. So she's giving him something there. But then later on, he's still like really overbearing with all of the right thing to do for a pregnancy. And I think eventually he relents. And don't they say that, oh, let's go have a pizza or something?
There was a moment where Ginger seemed like she had a little bit of second thoughts about the baby, too.
Did
you catch that in there?
Oh, she did say, she goes, I don't want this to be my whole life. I still have a life outside of this.
And I guess that sets a tone for the next season, too.
Oh, right. And then there is the last scene, actually, is when she goes over to the Averys and she's getting some hand-me-down clothes from
Jason's
Laura.
hand-me-downs.
And Laura says, oh, are you excited? And she goes, I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
So she's not really sure. She's still not fully convinced that she can count on Kenny. And would you be? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I could count on him either.
This scene really, to me, is more about Richard and Laura and their sort of mending of fences, because they're talking warmly about their memories of Jason. But there is this cute moment where I guess Richard has made some chocolate chip cookies, and Ginger's like, what, chocolate chip cookies?
Which we ate.
Yeah.
We already had those. You have a little bite left, so that's good. I ate mine.
So that's it. That's the end of the storyline for Kenny and Ginger. And now we have to segue into this conversation where we say, has there been justice for Ginger this season? Have we seen an improvement to her storyline?
I think there's been a little bit of an improvement. Yes, we've seen all of Knots Landing several times, so I know that what's coming is a little bit juicier. Yeah. So I would say things got a little... I mean, I would have liked to seen a little bit more of her, obviously. It's kind of weird how they jumped around. In certain episodes, you got a lot of Ginger, and then you didn't get anything. So I don't know. That part was a little frustrating, but... yeah, I think the stakes are a little bit better.
I think so, too. I definitely think they gave her way more screen time this season than they did in season 1, which surprised me because we also had the introduction of another character of Abby. What they did to Kenny, though, is they sort of kept him being dumb, well, however you want to say it, and sort of never quite doing the right thing. And so I feel like, in a way, he's more untethered this season. He's more the one that is kind of been thrown under the bus a little bit by the writers.
Yeah. So the emancipation of Ginger.
Yeah. Now, I will say that it would have been nice to have a button on the Karl situation as well.
Yeah, I wanted to know what happened to him.
Yeah. I mean, because we do see him in other scenes, and we'll talk about that in another episode that are not related to Ginger. But I just feel like there should have been some goodbye or something. And I don't know. I don't think we see him again.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Yes, there's been justice in a way, but I think there still could have been more. And I think I said earlier is that their storyline does feel more simple, more streamlined than everybody else's in the cast. But what did you think? What did you like in this season for Ginger and Kenny?
I enjoyed the fact that she is standing up for herself. So whenever I saw her kind of pushing back, you know, like the morning after, you know, I was proud of her.
I like the fact that she started dating somebody else and that she didn't just jump into bed with somebody else. Like, in a way, she was honoring the marriage commitment by not sleeping with this gentleman. Now, she may have slept with him eventually if they had kept going. Who knows?
No, she played it smart,
right?
Because she wasn't sure where she was going. I mean, it's good to know you have backup, right?
Yeah.
She has somebody, if something did go wrong, she would be able to call this guy.
I think she's very sweet. She's more old-fashioned compared to her sisters, even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, I liked that a lot. My favorite scene, I would say, is the one where Kenny meets Kristin and Gary has all those funny things that he says over Kenny's shoulder. I thought that was really funny. And then I did really like when Kenny is talking to Sylvie and she wants to go to bed with him, and he is just like so dismissive. I just thought it was his performance in that was really funny. So anyway, so we'll say goodbye to Louise Valance's Sylvie. We'll say goodbye to this Karl gentleman, David Haskell. And the only other thing I was going to say we mentioned was the what we call the Kenny and Ginger theme. We've heard that. I hope we'll hear that again. I'm sure we will.
Hopefully we will hear it next season.
We know that the baby's coming. We know the baby's coming in season 3, so we'll look forward to that as well. Now we're going to go to the Browmeter. This is our gauge of how highbrow or lowbrow an individual show, series, or episode is. We're actually going to cover 2 of the episodes that we dealt with more in detail. That was episode 5, Kristin, and also episode 14, Moments of Truth. What did you rate episode 5, Kristin, on the Lotus Point, the Browmeter score?
I give it a 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay, that's consistent for you so far
well,
this season.
It's going to be more consistent.
Mine was a 2.
Oh, okay.
2 on that
right.
one.
Yeesh.
Not too highbrow on that one. Not too highbrow. This is a more of a, I would say, traditional
but between 1 and 5.
nighttime soap kind of storyline.
Yeah.
Now, what about for episode 14, Moments of Truth?
Same-o, 2.5.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I went really low on this one. 1.8 for the Browmeter.
Oh, you were brutal.
I forgot about the Rose commentary about the haves and the have-nots. Maybe I'd raise it
You
up
could raise it a
slightly.
little.
Maybe I'll give it a 185. 185.
Okay.
Oh, I can't. I've already made the graphic. 1.8. Sorry.
1.8.
Standing by my
You got to
guns.
stand by your guns. It's fine.
All right, well, that wraps up our episode this week. Thank you for joining us on this rundown of all things Kenny and Ginger Season 2 of Knots Landing. We will be back soon with our next installment.
Who are we going to be covering next time?
Well, we are going to be covering Karen.
Oh, Karen.
More specifically, we're going to be covering Karen's interactions with her 3 children. So we will be covering the episodes Step 1. We'll be covering Scapegoats, and we will be covering Man of the Hour in more detail. Okay, so that is what you can look forward to. Of course, we will be talking also about really her relationship with Sid too, but Sid is going to have his own episode at the end because of other things that are going on, which I'm sure you can imagine right now.
And I'm going to say one thing. I am not a Pollyanna.
No, she is not a Pollyanna.
She's not a Pollyanna.
Anyway, we will see
you then
back
on the sack. Take care.